70% of lottery winners go broke. You've heard that. I've heard that. It's in finance articles. It's in money mindset carousels. I guarantee you it's in at least three of the other videos that show up if you search this exact topic right now. It's not true. Someone actually went and checked. Not trust me, not studies show. An actual 32-year study. 180 real Powerball winners. Court records, bankruptcy filings, the whole paper trail. And the real number isn't 70%, it's 2. So here is the question that actually matters, and the one nobody's answering. If they're not going broke, what's happening to them instead? Because something is 98% of lottery winners are not filing for bankruptcy, but a huge number of them are still describing the money as the worst thing that ever happened to them. I'm going to show you exactly what happens instead, using the most famous lottery curse story in American history. A man who won $314 million and later said he wished he'd torn up the ticket. Not because he went broke, he never did. And by the end of this, you're going to see why the mechanism that took his life apart is the exact same one sitting quietly in your room or in your own bank account right now, waiting for the next bonus, raise, or lucky break to switch on. Let's deal with the stat first, because tracing a lie is more interesting than most people expect. For over 20 years, that 70% go bankrupt number got attributed to a real organization, the National Endowment for Financial Education. Respected group, real nonprofit, journalists cited NEFE research like it was gospel. And it kept getting copy pasted from article to article, decade after decade. Nobody checked the original source. In 2018, NEFE finally addressed it directly. They stated on the record that they never conducted that research. The number was never theirs. It was a stat that got attached to a credible name and then just never got questioned again because it was too useful. It confirmed what everyone already wanted to believe, that sudden money destroys people, that the universe balances itself out, that if you didn't earn it, you don't deserve to keep it. That's a satisfying story. It's just not the real one. So, a research team went back and did the actual work. They polled 180 documented Powerball winners across 32 years. About 70% of every jackpot ever awarded in that new archives. They tracked what actually happened to each of these people's finances, marriages, and lives. Out of 180 winners, they found documented financial ruin in 4 cases. 4. Not 70%, about 2%. And here's the detail that matters most. When they looked closely at those 4 people, every single one of them already had serious problems before they ever bought a ticket. Substance abuse issues predating the win, criminal records predating the win. None of them brought on a financial advisor after winning. The money didn't create the collapse. It just removed the guardrails that were already barely holding things together. So, if the lottery curse isn't really about bankruptcy, what it is about? Let's actually look at the case that built this entire myth in the first place. Christmas morning 2002. A construction contractor from West Virginia named Jack Whittaker wakes up and finds out he's just won the largest single ticket jackpot in American history. At that point, $314 million. And here's the first thing that matters. Before we even get to what happened next, Whittaker wasn't some broke guy who suddenly got rich. He already owned a successful construction company. He was worth around $17 million before the ticket. This wasn't rags to riches. This was already rich to catastrophically, unimaginably rich overnight. At first, it looks like the dream version of this story. He takes the lump sum, about 113 million after taxes. He donates $15 million to build two churches. He sets up a foundation. He hires his own ticket clerk to help sort through the avalanche of letters asking for money. He starts handing out cash to strangers, to waitresses, to people at the racetrack, driving around in a Lamborghini, literally throwing money out of the window. By the time it's all said and done, estimates put what he gave away at over $50 million. This is the part every article stops at. Generous lottery winner. Feel good story. Roll credits. Except that's not where it ends. It's where it starts. Within a year, Whittaker and his company are buried in lawsuits, people suing them, claiming he owed them money, claiming he'd promised them something. He's spending millions just defending himself. He starts drinking heavily. He gets arrested for drunk driving twice. He gets accused in two separate lawsuits of assaulting employees at a racetrack he frequented. His car, his business, and his home all get broken into more than once. At one point, nearly $800,000 is stolen from him at a strip club he used to visit twice. And then it gets personal in a way no amount of money could ever fix. Whittaker had a granddaughter, Brandy, who he adored. After the win, he started giving her $2,000 a week. A teenager with an unlimited allowance and increasingly a drug problem that money was actively fueling rather than solving. In 2004, an 18-year-old friend of hers is found dead of an overdose at Whittaker's own home. A few months after that, Brandy disappears. 5 days later, she's found dead too, wrapped in a plastic tarp, dumped behind an abandoned van. Toxicology found methamphetamine and cocaine in her system. No official cause of death was ever settled. No one was ever charged. His marriage of 42 years didn't survive it either. His wife filed for divorce in 2008. In 2016, his house burned to the ground. He died in 2020 after years of declining health. The coroner's report listed a combination of prescription painkillers and cocaine. Years before he died, Whittaker was asked to reflect on the win. He said one line that honestly tells you everything. I wish I'd torn that ticket up. Now, read that story again and notice what's actually missing from it. He never went bankrupt. Financially, by the numbers, Jack Whittaker was never one of the 70%. He was technically a financial success story until the day he died. And that's exactly the point. The myth said lottery winners go broke. So everyone who repeats this story focuses on the wrong ending. The real story was never about the money running out. It was about what unlimited money does to a person's judgment, relationships, and sense of self when nothing in their life, no habits, no identity, no support system was built to handle it. So let's actually name what happened to him. Mechanism by mechanism. Because this is where it stops being a story about a lottery winner and starts being a story about you. Mechanism 1, mental accounting. So your brain doesn't treat all money the same. Even though a dollar is a dollar, money you worked hard for gets filled away as serious rent, bills, obligations, money that shows up out of nowhere, a bonus, a lucky bet, a lottery ticket gets filled as found money. And found money gets spent completely different, faster, looser, with almost no friction, because your brain never coded it as something that took real effort to get. Whittaker didn't earn that 314 million through 10,000 hours of grinding. It landed on him in one morning. His brain treated it accordingly, not like capital to protect, but like house money at a casino. That's not a character flaw unique to him. That's just how mental accounting works in every human brain, including yours. Every single time you get a tax refund, a commission bonus, or a crypto spike. Mechanism 2, uh, the hedonic treadmill. Humans adapt to almost anything so fast. The thrill of something new, a car, a house, a lifestyle upgrade, fades within weeks, sometimes days, but the cost of that thing doesn't fade. It's still where every month. It's still there. So the only way to chase that original high again is to spend more, upgrade again, add more permanent obligation on top of the last one. It's treadmill because you have to keep running just to feel the same amount of good you felt one day or on day one. And eventually you run out of road. Moving to the mechanism number 3, which is the guilt tax. What researchers sometimes call the social obligation of sudden wealth. The second people find out you have money, the social math around you changes instantly. You see, family, friends, strangers with a sad story and your phone number and your brain, which is wired for belonging and terrified of being seen as selfish, starts compulsively funding other people's problems just to relieve that discomfort. Bad business ideas, other people's lifestyles, one loan after another that everyone quietly knows is never coming back. Whittaker didn't hire a bodyguard against that pressure. He hired a clerk just to open the mail asking for it. Mechanism 4, which is identity collapse. This is the one almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important Whittaker's identity before that ticket was successful contractor, someone who built something with his hands and his judgment over decades. The lottery win didn't add to that identity, it erased it overnight. There was no more earned anything. Every future decision he made got filtered through an amount of money so large that normal decision making stopped applying. When the framework that used to tell you who you are disappears, people don't handle that vacuum well. They fill it with the nearest available distraction: alcohol, conflict, controlling behavior, anything that feels like agency again. None of these four mechanisms require $114 million to activate. They just get loud, and at that scale. At a smaller scale, they're running quietly in a normal life. Every time money shows up faster than your identity can absorb it. Here's the uncomfortable part. Whittaker had every source money could buy, and still didn't have the one thing that actually could have protected him: a clear, honest understanding of his own relationship with money before the money arrived. Nobody sits you down and asks that question in advance. Life just hands you the test whenever it decides to, and you're expected to already know the answers. That's exactly the gap I built something for. It's called the personal blueprint, a free 5-minute self assessment, no right or wrong answers, that's designed to show you the patterns already running underneath your own decisions before life hands you a moment that puts them under pressure. It's the first link in the description. You're going to find it in the description. If any part of what I just described made you think of a raise, a bonus, maybe, or a windfall that changed how you acted for a while, that's worth 5 minutes to actually look at it. Okay? So back to the story, because it gets even stranger. If it's not bankruptcy, what does the research say the actual curse is? Identity theft at a scale that's honestly hard to believe. Every single documented mega jackpot winner, researchers tracked everyone that had their identity fund being used in active fraud schemes, not some, all of them. Take Mavis Wanzek, who won $759 million in 2017. Her name alone has been used in over 3,500 complaints filed with the Federal Trade Commission, scammers impersonating her, or impersonating people connected to her, running claim your prize and the winner wants to help you schemes on total strangers for years after her actual win. Manuel Franco, who won 768 million in 2019, has has had fake charity pages built in his name and over 300 separate fraud reports tied to his identity, spanning more than 40 stats. One winner's cancer diagnosis was even turned into a dying wish: give away my fortune scam. It's run on vulnerable people who had no connections to him whatsoever. The FTS estimates over $350 million a year gets lost to lottery related scams. And the actual winners in most of these cases aren't the ones losing the money. They are just the name being weaponized to steal it from other people. So the real deadline was never lottery winners go broke. It's closer to winning enough money publicly turns you into a permanent, involuntary character in other people's scams for years, sometimes for the rest of your life. That's genuinely strange kind of curse. And it's one almost nobody talks about because bankruptcy is a much easier story to tell than identity fraud infrastructure. Now, here's the part that makes this whole video useful instead of just bleak, because most winners are not Jack Whittaker. In the same research, the majority of winners with documented outcomes actually did fine. Over half invested wisely, more than half have meaningfully to charity, about a third stayed in the same home they were already living in, close to 20% kept working their regular job. Takes Les Robbins, let's take him as an example, so who won $111 million in 1993, he kept teaching biology for over a decade. He used part of the money to start a summer camp and stayed married to his wife for 30 plus years after the win. Or Tom Christ, who won 40 million in 2013 and donated an entire amount to cancer research, stayed anonymous for months, and never changed his day-to-day life in any visible way. Notice the pattern? The winners who came out fine didn't necessarily have more discipline or more willpower than Whittaker. What they had was structure that didn't disappear the moment the check cleared. They kept an identity that existed independently of the money, a job, a role, a routine, people who knew them before the win and treated them the same after it. The money got absorbed into an existing life instead of becoming the entire life. That's the actual lesson hiding under this whole topic. And it has nothing to do with lottery tickets. You're extremely unlikely to ever win a lottery. Statistically, almost certainly you won't. But you will, at some point, get a bonus, a raise, a big commission check, an inheritance, maybe a crypto position that finally pays off, or a business that suddenly does better than you expected. And in that moment, on a smaller scale, every single mechanism was we just walked through switches on. Mental accounting will tell you, brain, that money is different, spendable, less real than the money you grind for every week or every month. The hedonic treadmill will make the upgrade feel amazing for exactly as long as it takes to become the new normal. The guilt tax will show up the second people around you know you have more than you used to. And if that money starts to define who you are, instead of just adding to who you already were, that's the same identity trap, just running at a scale small enough that nobody writes an article about it. The people who handle said money well aren't the ones with more self control in the moment. They are the ones who already understood their own patterns before the moment showed up. That's the entire difference between Jack Whittaker and Les Robbins. One of them had already built an identity solid enough to hold the money. The other let the money become the identity. So, the next time somebody tells you 70% of lottery winners go broke, you actually know the real numbers, and more importantly, you'll know what's actually worth worrying about, whether you ever buy a ticket or not. If you want to actually map out your own patterns before life tests them, links in the description. It's free, 5 minutes, the personal blueprint. I genuinely like to know what is or what it shows you. New video every Sunday, same as always. Psychology and behavioral finance, no fluff. If this one was useful, the subscribe button does more for this channel than you'd think. I'll see you in the next one.